and we can talk about excitement.
Exactly.
Short of
Well,
that,
it's that whole thing. I've got a couple of friends who work in the industry, and I've always been told that if like you'll hear people talking and they say like, "Oh, this director called me or this person called me and we did an interview and we're going to do this, we're going to do that," but they're waiting for funding. If they say that, just go on. Just go
yeah,
on because yeah, that's like as my grandmother would say, spitting in the wind.
yeah.
Until it lands, you don't know where it's coming. But God bless them because I do think that the end for Spencer and Heidi at the end of this year, they're going to get some good news. I do think they'll make it through this rough patch, but it's a financial, like I'm going to say probably financial stress more than they've had to deal with as a couple before. So it's going to be pretty intense. They'll come out of it. Everybody, don't panic. They'll come out of it. They'll be fine. But the end of this year, I do still see them on some type of show. Like they will have something. I don't necessarily feel like it's going to be this year. They may know the end of next year. But there's going to be a couple of little bumps along the road where somebody says, "Hey, let's do this," and like you said, it gets right there, and then it turns into nothing. It's a big nothingness. But if they'll just hang on, and he is smart, he is super smart. He'll be able to, and she is too. I mean, her energy's great too. She just seems a little more laid back than him.
And no, they didn't have insurance, and they're also suing the state of LA and others for, you know, a lot of
Multiple
things.
reasons.
Yeah, I think like, I don't know what the exact cause of action. I think like negligence and not having water to put out the fires and all of that stuff. But they are suing LA, and there might be other plaintiffs with them, but they are leading the charge. So maybe that's what, look, that's certainly expensive if you're paying for lawyers
Well,
if
it's
they're not
very
doing it.
expensive.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm just gonna leave that with this. As horrible as what's going on in California, and it is. I mean, we've psychic source. I know plenty of psychics who we have been praying for California, but um, karma's a bitch. Let me just say that when you use something to exploit somebody or something, it will come back and bite you in the butt. So, anyway, I will leave it
There's
with that,
there
David.
has been a lot of criticism of Spencer. A lot of people are like, get your bag, and a lot of others are like, it's a fine line between that and now you're exploiting this. So you're not
Yeah,
the
it
only
does
one.
feel very explore. I don't like it. I mean, everybody needs to make money, right? Like we have to kind of eat and stuff, and that's great. But I think that there comes a point to where you have to say no to something if you're hurting other people or if you are using tragedy to try to become famous. That's but like I said, let's sit back and watch Karma
You're
because
you're feeling some karma coming.
I'm feeling a little bit of karma just coming. I think that's the March, April, May time frame for them. They're either going to make it or they're going to break it. You can't exploit other people like that. The universe does not look kindly on it. Just saying.
Interesting. Well, we also have The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, which that franchise just ended for this season. And this one woman, Heather Gay, now let's just put her aside for she came up with this game at the end. Let's take our this is to try to break it down and start over. Let's take our phone and let's think of the worst thing that we ever said about any of the people sitting here. Just pick one person, pick the worst thing you said, and hand your phone to that person to then read what you said about them. Now, I don't know what world this would be a good game in, but
It's
the
not a
game, it's not a good game, right?
no.
So the game was played, and certain people's texts were somewhat innocent. And then others, there's this woman, Lisa Barlow. She was born December 14th, 1974. And she and this other woman, Whitney Rose. Whitney was born 9/28/86. So, like, when it was Whitney's turn, she could have picked anyone, but the worst text in her phone about any of the ladies sitting with her was about Lisa. And it involved the fact that she said that, someone propositioned her and her husband at a party and said, if you guys ever want a threesome, Lisa Barlow can give me a good referral because I had a threesome with her and her husband. Now Lisa went absolutely crazy because she's like, you're insinuating that my husband and I have threesomes, which we don't. This is Salt Lake and Mormon County, so just let's just put that all out. So this is just one example. I mean, so are things going to be okay? I mean, all the other women, there's a lot of other, this woman Meredith, she had issues with this woman Angie. Believe it or not, our podcast was kind of in the middle of that based on an interview we did, whatever. And then this woman Bronwyn, but like Lisa, I guess if we just want to pick an example, this cast left completely fractured because they all heard these horrible things about each other. But like if you
Right.
take Lisa and Whitney as an example, I mean, Lisa went crazy, like that. You're basically saying my husband, and Whitney got very upset because Lisa got up and then walked out. And the others there were like, well, you talk about my marriage, you talk about my marriage. Lisa talks about our marriage. There's a double standard. I mean, but we can't talk about Lisa's marriage. So are Lisa and Whitney going to be okay? Is the show going to be okay? Can we come back from this? Because it ended in a disaster between them all.
Well, okay. So first of all, I do think we're coming back. It's coming back. I don't stress yourself. I do kind of think that they'll be okay. Well, there's still going to be a little drama over it. I don't know why Whitney gets so, tied up in a knot about that because I feel like maybe it was because it was public, not because she didn't come to them privately, if you catch my drift.
Is your drift that maybe there are three songs in Lisa's
Oh yeah,
marriage?
absolutely. I kind of when you started talking about the whole crew, not saying anything about, Mormons or anything
Right.
like that, but these people feel feisty, like they feel crazy, like I feel like they're behind the doors is probably another show on its own. Just
I
saying.
mean, you get a vibe like that from a lot of these women on the show, not to stereotype about Salt
Yeah.
Lake but so you think what there could be some truth to that with Lisa Barlow and her marriage, but she's
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that one. Yes, there absolutely is. It's funny. I want people to remember this. How you can tell when somebody is lying is when they get over dramatic about what you're saying. So if somebody blows up like that and runs out of the room and slams the door and it causes all kinds of chaos, you can almost guarantee that 90% of what was coming out of somebody's mouth was probably true. So, with
That's a
that
good
being
point.
said, yes, so that she just was, I think, upset because it was said publicly.
Interesting. That's a good point. I mean, well, not to bring it back to Kyle Richards we talked about, but there was this whole thing where she sent a text to Dorit's in a separation from her husband PK,
Hmm.
and her and Kyle and PK were texting, and Dorit found out, the other ladies found out, and Dorit got upset. I